Since Nigeria became independent, achieving economic development through rapid industrialization has been elusive, and this has been the principal focus of the various administrations in the country. Manufacturing has been widely regarded and acknowledged as the driver for global economic growth and development. Industrialization is largely regarded as a crucial instrument for boosting economic development and prosperity. However, Nigeria's industry has been hampered by the country's unfavorable macroeconomic climate, especially when it comes to triadic rate of high and growing inflation, double-digit loan rates, and unfavorable exchange rate parity. The regulatory environment is tough, resulting in significant economic running costs. Businesses must also cope with a lack of infrastructure. The manufacturing sector has experienced low price competitiveness as a result of the high-cost business climate, since a multitude of near replacements for Nigerian-made items are legitimately imported into the nation, while others are smuggled in over the land borders. Funding at a low interest rate became necessary to alleviate the high-cost manufacturing environment and increase in the competitiveness of Nigerian-made goods. This is why the Central Bank of Nigeria established multiple development finance windows with single-digit interest rates to assist actual productive businesses such as manufacturing.
Both in the global commodity and financial markets. The extent of the backlash has, however, not fully crystallized, but presents a significant downside risk to the recovery of the global economy if the crisis is not resolved immediately. Additionally, COVID-19 pandemic remains a significant downside risk to global recovery as the virus continues to mutate into highly infectious strains. This is impacting a high level of uncertainty on economic agents, thus creating inhibitions towards making the required investments to set the recovery on a sustainable path. As part of the lifting of restrictions associated with COVID-19 pandemic, the strong recovery of aggregate demand has continued to pose a strong upside risk to inflation as supply bottlenecks persist. This has been further aggravated by sanctions imposed on trade with Russia and other blockages associated with supplies from Ukraine. Consequently, inflation is expected to remain considerably high in the short term, even as some advanced economies progress with interest rate liftoff. The rise in both corporate and public debt in the advanced economies and emerging market and developing economies is also a major threat to global financial stability, as the risk of sustainability is heightened in the currently tense global environment. Capital flows are thus expected to be restricted as global financial conditions tighten over the short to medium term. In the domestic economy, available data on key macroeconomic indicators suggest the likelihood of subdued output growth for the Nigerian economy for most of 2022. This is hinged on the dampening impact to growth of rising energy prices in the domestic economy, tightening external financial conditions as some advanced economies pursue interest rate liftoff, as well as the persistence of legacy security and infrastructural problems. It is however expected that monetary and fiscal stimulus will remain in place to continue to support the recovery until downside risk to growth and the upside risk to inflation dissipate substantially. Accordingly, the Nigerian economy is forecast to grow in 2022 by 3.24% CBN estimate, 4.2% federal government estimate, and 2.7% IMF estimate. The committee's consideration. The Monetary Policy Committee noted with concern the impact which the global price increase in petroleum and other products is having practically on all economies. Committee further noted that this has resulted in imported inflation on the Nigerian economy and believes that specific actions need to be taken to ensure that this trend does not continue, given the adverse consequences an aggressive rising price level could have on cost of living and purchasing power of Nigerians. Before the Russian-Ukraine war, MPC was optimistic that the moderate decline in inflation was sustainable due to the positive impact of good harvest on price levels. The MPC worries today that whereas global prices have gone up, this has been compounded by shortage of supply of petroleum products. In the short run, MPC urges NNPC to take urgent steps to ensure adequate supply of petroleum products in Nigeria so as to reduce the rate of arbitrary increase in price of these petroleum products by oil marketers. The committee noted with grave concern the unprecedented rate of oil theft recorded in recent times and its debilitating impact on government revenue and accretion to reserve. In the medium term, MPC is hopeful that the proposed takeoff of the Dangote refinery in the course of the year would help to improve the supply of petroleum products in Nigeria. MPC also note that the rising price of diesel is compounded by the problem of inadequate electricity supply in Nigeria, which has adversely impacted domestic prices. MPC advises the CBN management and the fiscal authorities to take specific and urgent action to avoid many power generating stations shut down for turnaround maintenance, resulting in the current unwarranted shutdown of our generating assets. MPC is relieved that food inflation declined marginally due to good harvest. Although some scarcity is expected as we approach the planting season, the committee is optimistic that with a high level of strategic grain reserves of the CBN, it is relieved that food prices will remain relatively moderated. MPC further advised management to redouble its development finance initiatives aimed at boosting domestic food output, which would help in moderating food inflation going forward, and by extension, headline inflation could get moderated. The president said we need to diversify the economy. The president said let's produce what we eat and eat what we produce. By extension, where we have raw material, let us produce the raw material locally, and then rather than us importing them with scarce foreign exchange. That is what, so the essence, what is the role of CBN? CBN is a lender in the sense that we contributed in funding the Naira project, the Naira side, and we also contributed in the providing FX for the importation of the equipment. The Dangote project is not just 2.5, just 2.5 billion, the fertilizer side that is being launched tomorrow, or commissioned tomorrow. The total cost of those entire projects is about 17.5, which comprises the fertilizer, the petrochemical, and the refinery. $17.5 billion. You put these three together, the fertilizer, the refinery, as well as petrochemical. By the time these projects come on stream, hopefully by the end of the year, total, the three of them, will be saving more than 30% of what central bank would have spent importing these items into the country. So for us, it's a win-win because the country badly needs to diversify the base of its economy.
The CBN has been able to carry out a number of intervention programs to help the country's economy throughout the years. Some of the interventions for access to finance are the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative, CBN BOI Industrial Facility, Textile Sector Intervention Facility, Risk Sector Support Facility, using differentiated cash reserve ratio, Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Development Fund, Agribusiness Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme, Youth Empowerment Development Program, Non-Oil Export Stimulation Facility, Export Development Facility, Small and Medium Enterprises Credit Guarantee Scheme, 1.1 trillion intervention fund, among others. Although the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index remained above the 50 index point benchmark in February 2022, it moderated slightly to 50.01 index point from 51.4 index point in January 2022. According to the Central Bank of Nigeria communique of the Monetary Policy Committee, meeting held on March 21, 2022, the manufacturing PMI continued upward trend, indicate the economic resilience in the face of persistent challenges to recovery.
To Nigerian Bureau of Statistics (NBS), real GDP grew by 3.98% year-on-year during the fourth quarter of 2021, compared with 4.03% during the third quarter of 2021 and 0.11% in the corresponding period of 2020. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, it grew by 9.63% during the fourth quarter of 2021, compared with 11.07% during the preceding quarter. This indicates the fifth consecutive quarter of real output expansion following the exit from recession in 2020. The positive performance was driven largely by the growth in the non-oil sector to 12.36% during the third quarter of 2021 from 10.99% during the third quarter of 2021. Quarrying, transportation and storage, education, financial and insurance services, information and communication, as well as steady rebound in manufacturing and mining activities were key to the growth of the non-oil sector. The committee, however, noted that although the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index remained above the 50 index points benchmark in February 2022, it moderated slightly to 50.01 index points from 51.4 index points in January 2022. This sustained positive performance in the manufacturing PMI reflects the resilience of the economy in light of persisting headwinds to the recovery. The non-manufacturing PMI, however, remained below the 50 index points in February 2022 at 49.0 index points, while a slight moderation compared with 41.01 points in January 2022 as legacy headwinds such as the persistent insecurity and infrastructural constraints continue to impact production and the ease of doing business in Nigeria. The committee observed with concern the marginal increase in headline inflation year-on-year to 15.70% in February 2022 from 15.60% in January 2022, a 0.1 percentage point uptick. This increase was largely attributed to a rise in the core component to 14.01% in February 2022 from 13.87% in January 2022, while food prices moderated marginally. The rise in core inflation was mostly due to rising energy prices as a result of the current scarcity of petroleum, premium motor spirit PMS, rise in the cost of automotive gas oil AGO, and hike in electricity tariff. Committee, however, expressed cautious optimism that with sustained interventions by the bank in various sectors of the economy and broad fiscal support to tame these legacy structural constraints, price developments will moderate as output growth improves. MPC therefore urged the fiscal authorities to seek innovative ways of addressing the current critical supply side challenges confronting the economy to enable the unhindered transmission of all the recently deployed fiscal and monetary stimulus to the real economy for good. Members noted the growth rate of broad money supply M3 increased to 2.12% in February 2022 compared with 1.74% in January 2022. This was largely attributed to an increase in the growth rate of net domestic assets, the NDA, to 5.78% in February 2022 from 2.62% during the previous month.
At the March Monetary Policy meeting, the People's Bank said it released 428.31 billion naira under the 1.0 trillion real sector facility to 37 more projects in the manufacturing, agricultural, and services sector between January and February 2022. The real sector facility has so far granted 1.75 trillion naira to 368 projects across the nation, totaling 1.75 trillion naira. The bank has funded 29.51 billion naira to 31 projects under the 100 for 100 policy on production and productivity, including 16 in manufacturing, 13 in agriculture, and 2 in healthcare. The bank also disbursed 8.50 billion naira to 6 healthcare projects under the Healthcare Sector Intervention Facility, bringing a total disbursement to 116.72 billion naira for 124 projects, including 31 pharmaceutical, 56 hospital, and 37 other services as part of its effort to support the healthcare sector's resilience. Under the Healthcare Sector Research and Development Grant, an extra tranche of 14.7 million naira was distributed to 5 researchers. The CBN claims that its intervention program has aided in stimulating growth and increasing GDP. The governor of the Apex Bank, Godwin Emefiele, said the CBN, as a development finance institution, has a responsibility to help the economy, particularly during tough times.
Committee reviewed the performance of the bank's various interventions to stimulate productivity in the manufacturing, industry, agriculture, energy, infrastructure, health, micro, small and medium enterprise sectors. Between January and February 2022, the bank disbursed 29.67 billion under the Anchor Borrowers program for the procurement of inputs and cultivation of maize, rice, and wheat, 3 crops that hitherto were significant concerns of FX demand. These disbursements bring the total under the program to over 4.5 million smallholder farmers cultivating 21 commodities across the country, comes to a total of 975.61 billion naira. The Nigerian Commodity Exchange (NCX) has also been restructured to effectively aggregate excess output from the bank's Anchor Borrower Program finance projects with the objective of moderating food prices. The bank also released 19.1 billion to finance 5 large-scale agricultural projects under our Commercial Agricultural Credit Scheme (CACS), bringing the total disbursement under the scheme to 735.17 billion naira for 671 projects in agro-production and agro-processing projects. In addition to this, the bank disbursed the sum of 428.3 billion under the 1 trillion naira real sector support facility to 37 additional projects in the manufacturing, agriculture, and service sectors. The funds sourced from the real sector support facility, differentiated cash reserve requirement, were utilized for both greenfield and brownfield projects under the COVID-19 intervention for the manufacturing sector. Cumulative disbursements under the real sector facility currently stands at 1.75 trillion naira, disbursed to 368 projects across the country, whereas under the 100 for 100 policy on production and productivity, the bank has disbursed a total of 29.5 billion to 31 projects, comprising 16 in manufacturing, 13 in agriculture, and 2 in healthcare. As part of its efforts to support the resilience of the healthcare sector, the bank also disbursed 8.5 billion to 6 healthcare projects under the Healthcare Sector Intervention Facility, bringing the cumulative disbursements to this sector to 116.72 billion naira for 124 projects comprising 31 pharmaceuticals, 56 hospitals, and 37 other services. An additional tranche of 14.7 million was disbursed to 5 researchers under the Healthcare Sector Research and Development Intervention Scheme. To support households and businesses affected by COVID-19 pandemic, the bank disbursed 21.66 billion to 19,605 beneficiaries, comprising 12,044 households and 7,641 small businesses under the TCF within the period. Cumulative disbursement under the TCF currently stands at 390.45 billion to 797,351 beneficiaries, comprising 660,096 households and 137,255 small businesses. The bank disbursed 11.11 billion to power sector players under the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Payments Assurance Facility (PAF), bringing the cumulative disbursement under this facility to 1.28 trillion naira. The sum of 12.64 billion was also released to discos under the Nigerian Electricity Market Stabilization Facility Phase 2, NEMS 2. Cumulative disbursement under NEMS 2 thus stands at 232.93 billion naira. Both interventions were designed to improve access to capital and ease the development of enabling infrastructure in the Nigerian electricity supply chain sector. Now, Infraco is set up, the board is running, MD has been appointed, asset managers have been appointed. We have currently 3 assets that are under finance. We've done some bridge finance of almost about 200 billion naira for that purpose. The remaining sums, the asset managers are going to be going into the data room to see the numbers, to determine viability of those roads, traffic counts, Lagos Ibadan, Abuja Kano Kaduna AKK project, as well as the second Niger bridge, which is almost completed now. So I'm sure we are only meant to complete the funding that federal government has put into it before now. And so we will do it. And the PAMSEC Finance, who also is assisting, at least in terms of collaboration between monetary and fiscal, also assured that there are pipelines of infrastructure projects that will be looked at. But of course, Infraco being an institution that looks at the commercial viability, will look at each of those projects, determine their commercial viability, determine particularly how will revenue be raised and realized, how will revenue be realized to fund to repay those loans, and from there they will be done. So I believe we're on a fast mode, but 2022 will be a very, very aggressive year in the tenure of Infraco. That will be the update.
According to Emefiele, efforts, notably in the industrial and agricultural sector, have considerably contributed to continued development in 2 critical areas of the economy, as Nigeria local manufacturing enterprises are putting in more effort to engage in backward integration operations. Emmanuel Haudu reporting for Moneyline with Nancy.
All right, welcome back for that, and thank you, Emmanuel. Let's quickly take a look at the numbers on the world. Are we good to go? We will start with the Nigerian market, where the local bourse all-share index moderated further by about 11 basis points to close at 46,843.09 points amid sustained profit-taking activity. Also, we saw that the exchange